Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of Genre Equality Podcast. I'm Hidzir.
I'm Hadi.
I'm Isa.
This month, we're actually going to be bidding farewell to three pretty important shows.
Okay.
I mean, two of them are all-time great genre comedies. BoJack Horseman and The Good Place, which ended the beginning of the month.
Yeah.
And so did, probably in my opinion, the most important superhero show of all time, Arrow, which, I'm not going to lie, has sucked for the second half for a long while. But I think we will be talking about how influential it is and the impact it has on the superhero TV landscape. Because
Definitely.
I think in an objective, not subjective term, I think Arrow has just been the most... It has created the largest universe ever.
Yeah.
With kind of the biggest fandom. And it has done the most ambitious things when it comes to superhero shows. So, I mean, it is important lah, despite the fact that it's kind of been sucking for a long time.
I would say it's been sucking badly for like 3 seasons.
Pretty much, right? Yeah. High spots here and there, but for the most part, it's pretty meh.
It's like a 4 out of 10 most of the time.
Pretty much, yeah. We'll be talking about Harley Quinn again.
Yeah, but different.
Different Harley Quinn, live action this time. There are some teen fantasy shows we'll be talking about. Yet another Stephen King adaptation. But the first ever adaptation of his son's book, Joe Hill, for Locke and Key on Netflix. There's like space tourism sitcoms and kids cartoons and Lovecraftian horror and some pretty terrible movies as well. Which reminds me, this month we're introducing a new segment.
Yeah.
All of us have our own little solo segments, Quick Hits and Isa's Anime Corner. From now on, we have a monthly segment called Hardywood, where he talks about kind of the big budget blockbusters that none of us have interest in.
But it's genre related or
genre related
adjacent.
Of
Or
course,
if
of
he
course.
can make genre by convincing us.
So
Genre adjacent.
if you recall, we actually had kind of a backdoor pilot for this segment
We did.
with the Hobbs and Shaw review.
Yeah, we did.
So if you remember that one, it will be similar to that lah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's for the Hobbs and Shaws of the world lah. Yeah, those kinds of movies. Indeed. Shall we begin with the two greatest genre comedies?
Oh,
of all time?
definitely. Let's start with a high.
Both are highs.
Yeah.
Both are highs. This is relative highs.
Yeah.
Let's start with the 6th and final season of BoJack Horseman. Actually,
The second half lah.
part 2 of season 6 of BoJack Horseman. We actually reviewed this last
year.
October or September. The first 8 episodes. Yeah. This is the final 8 episodes. It's a bit of a bittersweet thing because it's a show we love, but at the same time also you know they're gonna stick the landing.
And they did.
Yeah.
Sorry, spoiler alert. Whoa.
Not at all, man.
If you're like listening to this review, you'll probably have seen it already, so I think it'll be fine. But
I mean spoiler alert that we gave it away.
Oh, our ratings.
Our rating.
Right. But I guess whether it's animated, whether it's comedy, or whether it's dramedy, it's kind of become clear by now that BoJack Horseman is not just one of the greatest Netflix shows of all time or genre shows of all time, just like period one of the greatest series of all time.
It is.
Regardless of category, and this absurdly hilarious yet emotionally devastating cartoon about a washed-up sitcom star comes to a satisfying conclusion. Did it stick the landing? I think we already expressed, yeah, it did. I think creator Raphael Bob Waxberg has found a way to wrap up the series in a meaningful and emotionally satisfying and cathartic way. Not just for BoJack's arc, but also for Diane, Todd, Princess Carolyn, Mr. Peanut Butter, and all the rest as well.
Every supporting character got a good, nice ending.
Correct, yeah. As we saw in season 6, part 1, BoJack made great strides in dealing with his depression, getting sober, and repairing relationships with his closest friends. But in this kind of painful final stretch, finally holds BoJack accountable for the many people, primarily women, that he's hurt along the way. And while the drama kind of lies in a fine line between redemption and relapse for BoJack, the series also takes care to provide hilarious, beautiful, and moving closing arcs for the whole ensemble.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think about BoJack Horseman season 6 part 2?
Wow. There's so much to say, honestly. I mean, it has been with us for so long. It feels like a regular show. I mean, a show that we constantly go back to when we talk about perfection and talking about one of the greatest TV shows. Right? BoJack is up there with like The Wire and
Breaking Bad and
Better Call Saul,
and
but
The
which is still
Americans
running.
and things like that.
Yeah,
but those are non-genre things.
Exactly.
This is the one genre show that we talk about that's just consistently perfect.
And that's the thing, consistently perfect. Yeah. And that's because the animation style, might not be for everyone or whatever, you know. But the story, the character development, the empathy, and like there's so much. It's so much juice, in this series, and how they ended it was beautiful, you know. How everything was tied up. What's his name again? Bob Westbird?
Raphael Bob Westbird.
Bob
Yeah,
Westbird.
also of Undone, which we also really love as well.
I'm so that bittersweet is such a good way of describing it. Like that, you know, it was such a good series finale, and at the same time, it just feels sad that there's no more BoJack lah.
Yeah.
But the journey is there, like the journey is, you know, we've seen it from the start to the end, and so the empathy in this TV series was just so perfectly done. And the depth of all the characters, like even Todd, like you wouldn't expect Todd in season 1, you know, to be this character with so much nuance. And
I didn't expect BoJack Horseman in season 1 to have this much nuance.
but like, even more so for like a side character like Todd,
Yeah.
that you're just thinking he had like 2 side gags. He sleeps on the couch, and you know, and he is a mulcher.
Mulcher, yeah.
Yeah, and that's about it. You
Yeah.
know, and he makes quips
Yeah.
here and there.
Yeah.
And nope, he's asexual.
Yeah.
You know, he goes on. He fails upwards
All the time.
to great heights. You know, and he has this, and he realizes that toxic friendship he has with BoJack.
Yeah.
And that's just one example of many other examples of
Actually, all of them
realize
in different moments.
yeah exactly. So I'm gonna miss this show so much.
What about you, Isa?
Oh, wow. I think I agree largely with all of Hardy's points. What took me... Okay, what I found interesting in particular, or rather what I found a lot of resonance with in particular, was Diane's struggle in this second half of the season to write. Right, and write something that she felt of like of depth and of importance and something important to say, but she ends up with
A teenage, a young adult fiction book lah.
yeah,
Food Court Detective.
Food Court Detective,
Yeah.
which the premise of which I would watch for sure. But
No
just
doubt.
the way that they portrayed writer's block is pretty amazing. I have to say that it is very very close to what it actually feels like. You know, and what consistently amazes me about BoJack is that yes, BoJack is the titular character, and we follow his journey and his story.
We do.
But every season, without fail, right, the spread of the plot and the pacing and the depth of development, every character gets something, right, without fail, and it's always good. And I think that is a challenge, especially when you have a large cast like this, to tell that embedded within a story that you should not have that ability to, right? You know, BoJack's the star of the show, he's the star of this show, he's the star of his own show, but at the same time we see the importance of all the other characters around him and how he influences them and how they influence him as well. And without these characters, I think we would never have the show that we have now after 6 seasons. It's sad, but at the same time, I think what BoJack tried to do and set out to do was very successful, and it was a good place to end it. I don't think you could proceed past this without making it feel you know, less than what it is right now.
And they never overdid it. It was just the right amount of like sadness and depression and moments of happiness lah, you know.
Yeah.
And realization and all that.
I think BoJack has the reputation for the emotional parts of it, the characters, and the issues they take very seriously. But I think not enough credit has been given to how much it still, despite all that, still revels in the absurdity of this animal-human fantasy world,
the
and
parody and all that.
the satire of the Hollywood
Yeah.
industry. You know, that's all still very funny. You know, it's just that it's the drama that we all always talk about.
Yeah.
So I think before the show ends, it's important to point out that it's still a very funny show. Like,
is.
it's a
It
lot
is
of great
incredibly.
side gags. You know.
Yeah.
Like Hollywood.
Hollywood.
Yeah. And at the same time, it managed to do like thoughtful repudiations of the male anti-hero trope that has kind of been plaguing television since the Prestige TV days lah.
They did tackle hashtag Me Too.
Actually season 5 was more of the Me Too.
But this was the conclusion
this
of
was kind of more for the reckoning.
the reckoning
Of everything that he's ever done wrong.
Yeah.
You know, I think season 6 part 2 kind of delivered everything I wanted, but didn't necessarily know I needed. We see BoJack clean and sober for the first time since we've known him. We see what his life post Hollywood could be like if he just manages to line his ducks in a row. But we also see what it's like for BoJack to finally, truly, really face a reckoning when he's turning his life around for the better.
The comeuppance.
Yeah, and how he reacts to all of it. I mean, not surprisingly, those revelations come with hard truths and a painful process to come to grips with all of that, and ultimately life or death consequences. How that plays out is, I think, a must-watch experience if you haven't seen it yet. At first, BoJack handles it well, and apologizes unequivocally and genuinely. But we also know BoJack.
Hubris.
we know that that moment of validation, his narcissism and built-in need for validation, will but make him push it too far.
Yep.
And he did lah. And boy, that penultimate episode, The View from Halfway Down, is a goddamn work of art.
It is.
And right up there with some of the series' best episodes, like Free Churro or the Underwater episode. We can list
Free Churro.
we can list so many of their brilliant moments, and The View from Halfway Down is one of them.
It's one of them, yeah.
But outside of that, you got to talk about Diane, Mr. Peanut Butter, Carolyn, Todd. All of them have played integral parts in BoJack's story while existing outside of his sphere of influence. They are by and large good people, relatively speaking. And the show rewards them for that fact at the end. Diane gets perhaps the best standout episode of the season in terms of animation in the episode Good Damage that Isa was talking about. Perhaps
and a good insight into the
writing process.
Not only that, but antidepressants and how it affects your life.
Yeah,
your weight gain and all that stuff.
The chemicals in your brain, so you're not as creative and all of that. The only other episode of this season that I feel kind of matches that is kind of the Princess Caroline baby episode from part 1. But I think the best overall episode still has to be The View from Halfway Down. It's kind of the steel that brings all of BoJack's drama and trauma to a head in a heartbreaking afterlife dream sequence. As we wonder if BoJack's end will be the tragic one we all foresaw in the opening credits. Him drowning in a pool. And man, that episode also had this imagery of okay, BoJack and The Good Place ended on the same day, and that episode I kind of watched on the same night as The Good Place, and it had this imagery of people walking through a door frame, ending their existence, which is as if ending on the same night wasn't a coincidence enough. They both had that same imagery. I thought that was pretty cool, but BoJack's anything but predictable. So the idea of BoJack having to continue living with his failures and struggling to grow beyond them is perfect. Death is too easy of an answer for him, right? And the show kind of briefly says that...
I feel that would be the coward's way of going out by killing BoJack, actually.
Yeah. I mean, it will still make narrative sense, and I wouldn't necessarily have thought it's the wrong way.
It wouldn't be wrong,
Yeah, but the whole idea of the show is you have to grow and continue to struggle, and life is hard. You will make mistakes, and how do you grow past that? So if BoJack dies, then,
there can't be anything redempting about it.
It's not in line with the theme of the show.
And it just be depressing.
Correct, yeah. And BoJack was never depressing for depressing sake, although it was depressing many times. And like everything else in BoJack, the story doesn't end on a super uplifting feel-good note or one of downwardly spiraling depression, but something in the middle, something that feels real. So while it's not exactly satisfying in terms of a dopamine rush that you get in the Breaking Bad finale or something, the final moments are rewarding for those who've stuck with the characters through thick and thin. So I think towards the end they stayed true to the core cast of characters and they treat them like flesh and blood horse or cat people, or just people who live in heightened world, and you follow the stories to their logical conclusions with no hyperbole, really.
Nope, don't have. I said they didn't overdo it.
And there was no sympathetic schmaltz or nihilistic cynicism either. You find a middle ground and a milestone that ties off the story and acts as a pause before it carries forward on its own momentum, just off screen. So I think as you wrap up your thoughts on the show, what do you think? What are your final thoughts and how would you rate it?
My final thoughts are basically, if you have not watched BoJack Horseman, what the fuck are you doing? Go and watch it. I'll give it a 10 out of 10 . It's still a perfect show . I cannot find a flaw out of this show. There's no flaw.
What about you, Isa?
I do feel that the second half of this, breaking it up into two parts, that gap in between the first half of the season and second half of the season, I do feel did take a sort of momentum away from what they were trying to do. And solely because of that, I think I would give this a 9.5.
Okay.
Right? All in all, in its totality, BoJack is probably the highest rated piece of work that we have ever reviewed.
Yeah.
But the only thing that I fixed that by just rewatching the whole thing.
True. Yeah. And it only takes like 3 hours.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So I didn't mind.
Yeah. I mean, any more thoughts?
No, I mean, like, one of some of the bravest storytelling that we've ever gotten in comedy, I think. So many episodes that are just like kind of mind blowing. Every season you get at least one.
Yeah.
I mean, like, where else do you find that?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
this thing,
exactly.
yeah.
I mean, outside of the very, very best, the elite of the shows, like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know. Also, shout out to the BoJack team for kind of bringing back and paying off some of the show's longest running
Yes.
gags. The criminal career of character actress Margot Martindale.
Oh, that was so good.
Or in BoJack's season 1 theft of the D in the Hollywood sign finally paid off in the very last episode with Holly Whoop. Yeah, so for much of the home stretch, the series is this miraculous balance of comedy and drama.
Yeah.
The tragic parts of BoJack are the most important parts, but the show is also special because how it can comfortably coexist with these more ridiculous parts. In the end also, I do feel like it kind of lost something in the break as well. And I feel that, I don't know, because of that, I think it's a 9 out of 10 for me.
Okay.
Still extremely high rating, but not quite the perfection I've seen in the last 3 seasons.
Yeah.
And not the lowest BoJack season, which is season 1, which is an 8. So I mean, if you think about just the scale of what we think is a bad season, which is an 8, or a mediocre season, which is a 9, or the perfect seasons of which, you know, pretty much the bulk of the middle is 10. This is, I think, overall, all in all, it's a perfect show.
So 9.5.
Sure.
Yeah,
Averaged
definitely.
out.
Yeah. And speaking of really great shows, another one ended on the same day as we talked about, The Good Place. The Good Place.
Same amount of seasons?
Season 4, right? Good Place ended
4
on
seasons.
Oh,
Yeah.
4 seasons. Yeah, so shorter.
Not 5.
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But more episodes?
No.
No, also 16.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know why I think it's more episodes.
But they did break it up into 2 parts again.
It's network, so they have mid-season finales lah. So it's
Okay.
it's the old school formula. I think The Good Place began life as a comedy about a woman who accidentally got into heaven. But it's a wonderful afterlife journey. Revealed the show to be a kind of kind-hearted appraisal of philosophy and morality and the very meaning of existence. And it's kind of couched by pop culture zingers and warm friendship and clever puns. The series is divine, in my opinion, and it sticks the landing in its final episodes by continually hiding the heavy and heady under hilarity. So while the story of its 4th and final season may involve our crew revamping heaven and hell's system of judgment, the crux remains the beauty of human connection. And the series repeatedly argues, up to and including its final episode, that human connection and its capacity to change people is what makes existence meaningful. And that is the finiteness of this connection. That's what makes it so precious and fulfilling. Endings, not eternity, is what makes something special. And that's the bittersweet prism that we experienced the final season of this one-of-a-kind series. What do you guys think?
This was beautifully done also.
Yeah.
Right? And I love the problem-solving nature of this last arc, where they had to figure shit out. You know, they had to correct things and they had to...
It hasn't been like that.
That has been for the past few seasons.
Yeah.
But like this had that very... like even bigger stakes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, and again, because we already established how well, how they really have very well defined relationships, right?
Yeah.
So everybody fits in very perfectly in this. And how they come to the solutions is very practical lah. It makes sense lah. You know. However, it's another story with a lot of heart. You grow to love these characters who are actually terrible people in season 1. You know, where you're like, oh yeah, actually these people are kind of terrible. Especially Eleanor lah, you know, and she was looking out for herself, you know, he was in a survival mode and all that. But again, just like BoJack, in a way that it doesn't overdo it, you come to that very poignant conclusion that no one is really all that bad.
And no one is really...
And no one is really all that good.
Yeah.
You know, it has that very nice middle ground kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so the whole idea of a good and bad place becomes a very weird concept lah.
It's
It's not black and white lah.
No,
You know?
even if you are all that bad, the idea of eternal damnation, regardless of how evil you are,
Doesn't
fit the crime.
yeah.
Because you're bad for a certain number of years.
It's a temporary time.
It's forever is your punishment,
Correct.
you know. And throughout the duration of forever, which is very long,
Yeah.
you might change.
It doesn't
you know?
doesn't compute lah. So
Yeah.
so the conclusion, how they came up with that solution and all that, you know,
Yeah.
this was perfect lah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, but apart from the schematics of like the good and the bad place and all that stuff, the idea of and the exploration of the good place was so brilliant. You know, like, oh yeah, what happened if you can have everything in your life and every whim and fantasy that you're thinking about?
You'll get tiring very quickly.
Exactly, and they addressed that beautifully lah, I thought, with that one solution lah. Phew, not bad, no spoilers.
Yeah. What about you, Isa?
What a fitting end, right? I think like just to make some comparison between how BoJack ended, it's very in theme, you know, with the way the whole series was. But for Good Place, like you kind of saw it coming, right? Like you kind of saw it coming a mile away, especially even in the first episode coming into the second
This
half of the
season.
season. Yeah. And it definitely tied things up very well. I feel like the emotional kind of investment that we have put into these characters over the years really did pay off in a way that was heartwarming. And I do like the fact that, and I think this has consistently been something that The Good Place has done so well, is that they always take things to its logical conclusion.
Yes.
Right? And that is extremely satisfying because they aren't afraid to revel in the absurdity of what that logical conclusion may be. But at the same time, it gives you some sort of satisfaction to see that happen and play out with the characters themselves. I think in particular, you kind of realize like Eleanor, despite all of her amoral kind of standings and her character development throughout everything, she is the linchpin of the entire story.
She's the leader.
Nothing would have moved forward if not for her various machinations and struggles and anxieties about the things that she's trying to do.
Yep.
And I just like the idea that at the end of the day, that even in the afterlife, you still have to struggle and figure things out and do all these things in order just to become a better version of yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And the way in which they come to that conclusion ultimately through Chidi's help is pretty brilliant, I have to say.
Yeah. I think the show is a very smart show, obviously, but it's quite rivaled by its sweetness, in a Parks and Recreation kind of way. I feel, and I think it's a very generous outlook on the human experience, and that's what makes The Good Place very good. Its ending, you know, wrecked people emotionally, not because of some intellectual idea, although there were a lot of profound ones, you know, but because of the bond that these characters have made,
Yeah.
and the catharsis and the growth that they were able to achieve after how many Jeremy Beremies ever, you know.
Yeah.
Michael, Chidi, Eleanor, Janet, Tahani, and Jason's arcs were all wrapped up. You know, Jason is a bit like the Todd of the show, I guess.
But even he had a good arc.
Yeah.
And they were all wrapped up, some in silly ways and others in more impactful ways. And The Good Place has always been a restless show. And it's probably a lesson for us, not only in life, but also in entertainment, where shows like Supernatural or The Walking Dead have kind of worn out their specialness because they stuck around for too long, you know. The Good Place, much like all of its characters, like chose to walk through the door when it was really when it was time, you know.
Yeah.
And kind of just on a personal note, like on the pop culture end of things, I feel like
I also got this.
I feel like the judge is a bit of a representation of myself. In just her pop culture opinions. She had very specific taste.
The Timothy Oliphant.
Oh, I love that.
I think they built up her fandom of Deadwood and Justified over a couple of seasons already, because she's just been binging
since
both
she was
shows.
introduced, actually.
So she was started out with Deadwood, and then because of Timothy she went to Justified, which is what I did. And her fangirling over Timothy Oliphant brought me so much joy, and
she telling you do not watch Deadwood.
And getting Timothy Oliphant to guest star
that was
as an
brilliant.
amalgamation of himself and his Justified character. It's a cool, and it's weird, and just the idea of like Mike Schur having to call up Timothy Oliphant and trying to explain to him like why he needed him.
You're gonna play yourself, but not really.
First, he has to explain the premise of the show,
Yeah, exactly.
and then he has to explain how we have gotten up here and why he's important. It's a very specific representation of me. It just drops pop culture things like, oh dear, there was just a random meeting where she was watching The Leftovers, and it was just appalled that Carrie Coon was never nominated for an Emmy.
Which is one of your gripes.
That was me, you know. And actually, weirdly enough, the whole Leftovers thing might actually be a shout out to Damon Lindelof, because in his wrap up podcast, the Other Good Places podcast, you know, Mike Schreck actually did revealed that the season 1, the bad place twist, you know, the famous one at the end of season 1 was Lindelof's idea. That they just happened to be talking and he just dropped that idea. Then he was like, that's a good idea. I mean, like, Lindelof didn't write it or anything.
No, just a percolated idea in his head.
He was just like, what if it was the bad place? And it's like, Then he built the season around that idea. And I mean, it was really, really great. As wrestling fans, you know, Stone Cold Steve Austin and his bedpan that Eleanor found in her good place.
And then she was like smelling it and all, and everybody just weirded out.
Yeah, that's the bedpan that he hit Vince McMahon with on Raw in the late 90s.
I love Jason's fandom of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I don't know how he knew, but there was an update lah. So when he started shouting Foles instead of because the new quarterback is Foles lah.
Janet probably updated him, right?
Maybe, because I don't know how time works. I don't know, you know, because Baramis are so long and
but
arduous. But
Jeremy's are also perception of time.
So you know,
could feel long to them, but actually like,
but it might be still, you know, for something.
You never know lah.
You never know. You don't need to know.
It's metaphysics.
Exactly. But so I like that little nods or little details like that lah, which, you know, it's cute lah. I love Tahani's arc, by the way. Didn't you all think that was beautifully done also?
It was great. I think the moment when both... Okay, like seeing her and her sister both appear in that particular episode, and then like seeing how that has kind of changed. And then kind of like the coup de grace would bring the parents in.
And it's brilliant because all three had to go through that strenuous test. You know, so all three would come out very different people from when they first met. So I love that.
I do feel like it is so... It was so fitting. It was so... and I'm going to be using that a lot. So fitting for Tahani to just kind of like be crossing everything off her list as possible, right? And then coming to the conclusion that there's still one thing that she hasn't done and she's going to go do that anyway, just because she can, and she'll probably be really good at it. It is just one of the things that we have grown to love about the character, and to give her that kind of like satisfaction of like, yes, I still got some more things to do. I really, really like that.
Me too.
You know.
I think you have any concluding thoughts before your rating?
Same with BoJack. Please watch it if you haven't watched it. I'll give this a solid 8.5.
Okay. What about you, Isa?
Yeah, it's an 8.5 for me. I think what I liked most this season was Chidi's being able to see a Chidi that can make decisions was...
and he was like snap decisions.
That was his growth.
And I that was most satisfying for me.
I think in the end, like, you know, beyond the comedy and the pop culture silliness, Good Place found a lot of meaning in mundane human interaction. And it goes through and exemplifies so many complex philosophical ideas, and after all that, it wisely concludes a simple conclusion that, you know, how we treat each other is the only real measure of good and bad in a world of grey areas. And that no matter, you know, how bad they are, people should be rehabilitated instead of punitively punished, because people can change and they will change if we give them a chance. It's a very optimistic view on life. Very, very Star Trek-y.
In a way, you're right.
And through it all, The Good Place wasn't about a place. It's about how we as people should endeavor to make any place that we visit better through generous actions and by forming meaningful relationships. Much like how Eleanor and her gang left every place they visited a better place, you know. In the end, it was revealed that The Good Place was them. The Good Place was us.
Like Asgard.
Well.
I think this is the kind of show that will be timeless because its fundamental message of kindness will always be needed.
Will always be needed.
Not that it won't change, I think.
No, I mean that message will always be
needed
around.
The world is an unkind world, and people sometimes need reminders about, you know, why you should treat people better. It's an 8 out of 10 for me. Very good last season. Very good show in totality.
So what are your ratings for the entire series, like for BoJack, for example, and for The Good Place? What would be your ratings for the entire series?
I think BoJack in total will be a 10. The Good Place will be an 8.5.
Same. 10 and 8.5 also. It averages out now.
Indeed.
It always averages out.
Next up, we will be talking about the live-action version of Harley Quinn.
Ooh.
It's called... Well, it has 2 titles now. Firstly, it was called Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn.
Yes.
Title I really loved. And then, after it didn't do well in the box office...
They kind of put Harley Quinn as the title.
They renamed it as Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey. Apparently, some people couldn't find it.
When they were trying to
Book tickets, so they were typing Harley Quinn lah.
so they thought it was not out.
Yeah. But you know, it's hard to review this without comparing it
to the
animated show.
Yeah.
I
sure.
I also think it's a bit unfair.
Yeah.
But I mean, the animated show just wrapped up. I mean, last week, and
we'll be reviewing that next month.
no. I mean, we already reviewed it.
Oh, we did, right?
Yeah.
Because it was only like last episode.
But the Harley Quinn animated show is back in April, so
Yeah.
it will
Fast
be
game.
Yeah. But I think me and Hadi discussed that it was a bit of a kind of a sanitized and diluted version of the animated series.
Yeah.
But because the animated series is so wild, right? The watered down version of it is still pretty fun.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of what Birds of Prey is lah.
Yeah.
If you've seen the Harley Quinn animated series, this is a watered down version of it, but still good.
It
you
is.
know, it's still really fun, and it's an unabashedly hyper stylized, super violent, foul mouthed, eccentric, you know, bonkers bananas crime comedy. And it's filled with, you know, the usual stuff that you get from the animated show, the Deadpool-esque meta humor. You have great action choreographed by Chad Stahelski, who directed John Wick.
A great villain in Ewan McGregor.
And who actually exuded danger.
Yeah.
And a kind of a dash of like Tarantino structural quirks with
Maritime.
somebody telling a story, and it's kind of disjointed in that way.
Sonic had that also.
And it's sort of a sequel to Suicide Squad, but not really. It's set in the aftermath of Suicide Squad and Harley's breakup with Joker. Margot Robbie sort of leads this new girl gang made up of Huntress, Black Canary, Renee Montoya, in a conflict with, as you mentioned, Ewan McGregor's Black Mask and Victor Zsasz. I think I really enjoyed the thing I enjoyed most was the kind of the chemistry of the cast.
Yeah, me too.
And I like the style and the fourth wall breaking and how the style of the story really made sense, because if Harley Quinn was telling a story, she would tell it this messily, you know. What do you guys think?
Victor Zsasz is like creepy as fuck. He's so creepy.
I like that they didn't throw the gay relationship he obviously had with Black Mask in your face, you know. They were just like, oh, they're obviously a couple. But like, you don't need to say it lah.
Yeah. He's so creepy, right?
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. Like, I love how because the first time I seen this actor was like back in like Newsroom, you know, when he was like a TV exec lah. Yeah, but so this was the first time I seen him in such a role where he was just playing a maniacal, crazy gay man. Yeah, but but apart from him, Margot Robbie puts on a great performance lah.
The only good part of Suicide Squad, obviously,
was her lah. You know, and I felt that a lot of the mistakes that they did in Suicide Squad wasn't done here. Like, the team up was very organic. It felt very organic in the end. Like, it was okay, we have to team up now. There's no choice, you know.
Yeah.
On the downside though, it wasn't a Birds of Prey movie until the last 10 minutes.
Until the last 10 minutes, yeah. It was a Harley Quinn movie.
Hence the title change made sense.
Yeah, exactly. So I wasn't too pissed when they changed the title.
Yeah.
The surprise for me was the tiny Asian girl. What's her name?
Cassandra Cain.
Cassandra Cain. Yes.
Future Batgirl.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I have some thoughts about that.
Yeah.
We'll go there.
So she's cool, you know, with her cast, you know, and her pickpocketing skills and all that stuff. And she pickpocketed Victor's ass, like without any thought and consequence. She just did it. But yeah, and I felt that a lot of people have problems when it comes to all girl, clearly, you know, trying to push forward this female centric narrative. I thought they did it relatively well. It wasn't in your face. You felt, wow, these girls deserve this, you know, like their moment and to shine and all that stuff. It just felt organic and not forced. There was no like propaganda agenda that is secretly trying to influence you, that kind of thing. The movie just was good because it was well written, well acted, and you had very good action scenes. Yeah, which I expected from a Harley Quinn movie. Yeah. And they didn't make any of the stupid mistakes that they did in Suicide Squad. Yeah.
The mistake was the movie. What about you guys?
The mistake was the movie.
Oh, let's take a moment to revel in that.
I mean, the whole movie was a disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest.
Except Harley Quinn.
Yeah. The worst part was the what was the witch character? Cara Delevingne's one.
The Enchantress.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
No.
And the dancing?
That's literally the worst.
Yeah.
The worst.
The hip gyrations that
And the
brought
blue,
the apocalypse.
the blue light into the sky.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people make fun of Martha and all that, but like truly, Suicide Squad was the worst.
Was the worst.
Yeah.
BVS has nothing compared to Suicide Squad's
For sure.
ridiculousness.
Correct. Suicide Squad came out first, right? BVS would be hailed as like a masterpiece.
Exactly.
Like, oh, they're trending in the right direction.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we're getting off topic anyway.
Sorry. Yeah.
Props to Margot Robbie for believing in the Harley Quinn character enough to want to produce the movie.
Yeah.
I think like it was sorely needed, and I totally understand what you guys what Hits you were saying about like comparing it to the animated series, right? Like going
It had the same premise,
Yeah.
break up with Joker and then how you recover from that.
yes, and well, different endings. Well, as far as we know, because we have season 2 coming out for the animated series, I did understand that you get to do a lot more in a series than you can do in the 1.5 hours
Correct.
that they
Yeah.
wanted to do.
Yeah.
course, yeah.
I did enjoy the fact that she does go back to Joker, right? And that really kind of like sets the tone very differently, right?
Because this would have been Armani Joker, right?
yes,
Yeah, Jared Leto.
yeah,
Yeah.
Jared Leto, yeah, the damaged one, yeah.
Armani Joker.
Armani Joker. Oh goodness. So props to that. I think like she had a fantastic performance. There are these moments of kind of, for lack of a better term, quiet, in which like her acting really shows through in such a manic sort of character.
Yeah.
And that like switching between all of that and being able to do to just like drop these like psychological like quips
Because she is a doctor.
because
Yeah.
she is after all a doctor, right? Was kind of brilliant. I love the way that it was portrayed. I love the realness of it, right? Like in very, very simple things. I think a lot of the time for superhero characters, especially when it comes to women, the hypersexualization and all of that, this movie was not afraid to be messy and sweaty and just like all of that struggle that would come from doing the kind of like physical work that you have
I'm
to do.
so happy that Black Canary. Okay, no spoiler. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So
I know what I mean.
yeah, and the way that they kind of like support each other in very kind of practical ways, I just
No
found,
choice. They had to.
which I completely love. I think Ewan McGregor's Black Mask is probably the most nuanced version of Black Mask I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Black Mask has always been kind of like a 2-bit villain that you bring up when
gangster,
everybody else is in Arkham.
Very generic,
Very generic,
Yeah.
hides behind his mask and just growls all the time.
Correct.
This is the first time like he seems kind of more human, and you kind of understand why he's
I mean,
so
he
fucked
only
up.
wears the mask in the last part.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sorry, spoiler, whatever.
But it was really, really good. Cassandra Cain is one of my favorite kind of DC characters, and a lot of it has to do with a very, very broken background. Despite the fact that the character has been retconned a number of times, it's always been a very dark thing. So it's very interesting to see a new face come in to play a very different version of that. And I'm curious to see if she continues with that. I think it'll be quite fun.
Interesting. Yeah. I think in the end it's quite this Technicolor joyride, with like glitter bombs and badass sequences and roller skates and hyenas and
So cool.
and fun for what it is.
It is, yeah.
On the downside, I think it's a bit front-loaded, as in more entertaining at the beginning than at the end.
Yep.
And its structure, while playful and creative, also leads to kind of weird pacing decisions. I also didn't like that they kind of nerfed Harley a bit. She used non-lethal rounds on cops just for the sake of getting the audience aesthetics and getting the audience to make her to like her.
You can't kill cops.
I know,
You
I
kill
know.
cops, you become unlikable.
Which
Yeah.
is not a problem in the animated show, which she
Yeah.
kills innocent people all the time, and we still like her because
She doesn't kill cops in the animated show too. Do you remember?
Oh, King Shark did.
Yeah, King
Once,
Shark
like,
did.
he bit off someone's head accidentally. But whatever lah. Like I would have liked her to still be a villain.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyways,
But because I think they're pushing her towards this anti-hero kind of.
Sure.
Lane,
to be fair, in the comics right now, that's where she
That's
is.
where she is, lah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to kind of bring that into alignment, as with both Marvel and DC are trying to do, and align all their universes, I guess it makes sense.
Because in the terms of like evilness, she's way tamer than like the Joker and other DC villains.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, she's always
So it's
kind
quite
of
easy
set
to
on
like
that
switch
line.
her towards anti-hero than.
I mean, in the history of the character also, she does that a lot. Like, she has these moments where, I mean, obviously when she's with Joker, she's homicidal lah, like all the time. But any other instance,
Yeah.
it really depends on who is with
Who's
her.
with her lah? Yeah.
Yeah. And again, like I don't know. I would rate this a 7 out of 10.
Yeah. 7.
I don't know whether I would have rated this higher if Harley Quinn the show didn't come out. Because I just can't divorce myself from it. Like
I also cannot.
It at the same time. It has the same
yeah.
premise, you know.
Yeah.
And it did feel like a sanitized version of the show. It has the violence is toned down compared to the show.
Yeah.
It kind of lacks the itch.
Because this was not R, right?
This was an R rating,
This
which
was
they
an R
didn't
rating.
fully
Oh,
utilize.
wow,
lah.
okay.
And it also didn't have kind of the sense of gonzo creativity that like Doom Patrol has, for example, another show in DC Universe.
Yeah.
Or Legends of Tomorrow or something like that. It could really have gotten
wild,
wilder
yeah.
and funnier also. So some missed opportunities there, but overall I really had fun with it. Yeah, 7 out of 10.
For a show, 1 hour 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, a 7 out of 10.
Yep,
Solid.
same here for
Yeah,
me.
recommend.
Nice. Next up, before we talk about his daddy, we'll talk about Joe Hill.
Yeah.
Fans of Locke and Key, the horror fantasy comic by Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez, spent the entirety of the 2010s waiting for an on-screen adaptation that never materialized. So before I talk about the show, I've been following kind of the development hell of Locke and Key for a long time, so I kind of just want to break down how difficult it was to bring it to the screen. Like, it's a crazy story. Fox, back in 2011, tried to make a pilot. And they did make a pilot, but they passed on it. The pilot was fully shot. They passed on it. Then Universal bought it and proposed a film trilogy announced in 2014. They entered pre-production, they cast it, and then for some reason it never happened.
Okay.
They dropped it. And then last year, Hulu bought it. Hulu filmed 2 episodes of it and then pulled the plug on their version of the series, even though the writers had already banged out all the scripts.
All the scripts.
Yeah.
So why did they pull out? Do you know?
They just didn't like it.
Oh.
They
After they've watched the first 2 episodes.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. They was like, oh, this is whatever.
Not our thing, lah.
Not our thing. We're just gonna pass on it. And then Netflix bought it, and that's the version that we're getting now, lah. So it's kind of a crazy history, if you think about the 10 years of how many different studios have tried to make movies and TV shows out of it. One of the greatest horror comics of all time. And finally, after 10 years of waiting, fans get this live action adaptation on Netflix, lah. So still not worth it, lah.
Yeah, still not worth it.
Yeah. Netflix.
Do you finish the entire thing?
I went up to episode 4.5, 4.5 episodes.
Me and Hidzir just, I think 2.
1.5. 1.5.
Okay lah,
yeah.
2
Yeah.
Round out 2
Yeah. I think based on what I've seen, I was a big fan of the book. I think as a lot of people are. And I'm just going to put it aside and judge the series on its own merit.
Sure.
Yeah.
And on that front, like, not impressive at all. It plays like a karaoke version of Netflix's greatest hits.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant way of saying it.
Lock and Key aspires at various points to be a haunted house story like The Haunted of Hill House.
Yep.
A story of a group of adolescent outcasts.
Like Stranger Things.
Discovering superpowers, like Stranger Things. A more straightforward teen drama with love triangles.
Like Riverdale.
Like too many influences to list here. And a mystery series with an elaborate puzzle box mythology, also too many influences to this.
Correct, like it feels like it doesn't have its thing, right?
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it feels so disjointed at times. The weirdness of the characters at times.
It all feels so familiar, and just don't get me wrong, it's a perfectly fine, fine dark fantasy, but there's nothing special about this. It lacks focus, and the pacing is sloppy, and
Iceman was weird.
yeah. I
That's
don't
the
know,
brother.
man.
I don't know the actor's name lah, so I just called him Iceman.
Yeah. I think the reason all of us fell off, despite me trying to get through it struggles to establish stakes and emotional investment in the characters. And it's too often stuck in a realm where there are drama, love triangles, and hockey practices, and amateur filmmaking. It's likely to bore young viewers and
It's
feel,
like I don't care.
and feel quaint to anybody who's older,
Yeah.
And it's fine entertainment, but a pale shadow of an exceptional comic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, based on like, how would you rate the first or the first 2 episodes that you've seen?
Like 3.
Okay.
I mean, it was okay written. It was okay acted. It was an okay story. Cool keys, opening stuff, and all that stuff. I like that. But I didn't give a shit about like the lady in the well lah and like her story lah. I really couldn't give a.
Yeah. What about you, Isa?
Yeah, that's what
it's
happened.
just like to use kind of the imagery in the show. It's like you get a box and you're given a key, and when you open a box, right, it feels really heavy, but there's nothing inside of it.
Like you open and then that's it.
Yeah, like literally, it is so much, but nothing at all at the same time, and that really, really bothered me.
Correct. Yeah.
Same,
it's a 4 out of 10 for me lah.
Yeah,
it's almost a pass, but I think some people would enjoy it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Like some people who don't watch,
I feel it's easy viewing for a lot of people. Like
Correct,
you
yeah.
just put it on and just do things.
Yeah. This is a very I do my laundry, I iron my clothes kind of thing. Yeah. So it's
4 out of 10.
okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I saw it was a tree also.
It's a tree, yeah.
It's a
for
tree.
me.
Okay. Yeah. Next up, we'll jump into quick hits, which is a round robin, very quick lightning round where I talk about all the stuff that me and my co-hosts have not seen. Although some of them have actually seen a couple of these
Yeah,
things.
only one only though.
I think Isa has seen Kipo and Hardy has seen Avenue
Avenue
5.
5, yeah.
Okay. So let's begin with Kipo and the Age of Wonder Beasts.
Yes.
What's this about?
If you're looking for a great all ages cartoon, please check out Kipo and the Age of Wonder Beasts on Netflix.
Technically, it's M18.
Technically,
Yeah.
Oh wait, it's M18.
It's M18 on Netflix.
Oh,
it's
damn.
only M18 because of a lesbian relationship,
Yeah.
and I don't
Oh
subscribe
my
to that.
god,
Yeah.
is that because of Singapore?
No, so
No.
there's a few like revelations of like LGBT stuff.
That's all.
Yeah,
And
that's
then-
all.
yeah, and
Same
it's an
reason. Okay,
illusion.
like Hulu, Disney Plus, they own Love Simon, which is
Yeah,
owned by
yeah,
Fox.
yeah,
Love Simon
yeah.
is now a TV show.
Yeah.
It's still a teen drama with no violence, with no
Nope.
curse words,
Nope.
no f bombs or anything.
Nope.
But Disney Plus pushed it to Hulu because it considers it mature content because it's
of-
about a gay couple.
Yeah.
Yeah. So much,
Okay.
much in the same way like
Yeah,
Netflix
so
has rated
Kipo-
this M18, not because of anything,
But
Yeah.
because it's lesbianism in
yes, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's not fair. But to me, it's an all ages cartoon.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And it feels like a cross between like this there's this Invader Zim art style kind
Oh,
of
nice.
vibe,
Yep.
and a Miyazaki fantasy kind of vibe also.
Sorry, which
Yeah.
studio is this?
DreamWorks,
Yes.
Oh,
if
okay.
I'm not wrong. And the vibrant animation just oozes with color and style. It boasts a charming group of kid heroes that I actually like. I traditionally don't like kid heroes. And an absolutely phenomenal soundtrack by the same guy who did the Into the Spider-Verse soundtrack. It's set in a future where humans live in underground cities, and animals have gained sentience, grown in size, and taken over the surface. We follow a lost girl from the underground who falls in love with this wondrous surface world of kaiju bunnies and talking frogs and mutated animals lah.
Yeah.
Along the way, she makes friends with various mutants and surface humans that she encounters, and she becomes the target of several group of animals as well lah. So basically, the story is about a group of humans and their animal friends on the run from even bigger things that want to eat them or use them for something else.
Okay.
I can't emphasize enough how cool the music is. It's very cool and
Very good.
it's very, very good. And
Very good.
and the various animal societies are really fascinating and all funny. A definite must watch, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What
Sure.
about you, Isa? What do you think?
I think Kipo for me had the same kind of wonder that Hilda had, but in a much more grown-up way.
Yeah.
Right? I had a ridiculous amount of fun with just discovering the world together with Kipo, and quite frankly, the absurd animal groups that she comes across,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like your mod frogs, for example, is hilarious. Your fitness raccoons,
Yeah.
your humming bombers and all that. Like every single group of the animals, or packs as they call them, had something that was unique and bizarre and absurd about them that really kind of played out in unexpected ways.
Yeah.
That I found incredibly enjoyable. To see a take on a post-apocalyptic world that was that strange and that fun, while maintaining a sense of danger.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I really, really enjoyed Kipo. Yeah.
Okay, so that is okay. It's a post-apocalyptic world.
Sure,
It's a
yeah.
post-apocalyptic
Like as you
world,
mentioned,
yeah.
like
Invaders
humans live,
okay.
humans live underground.
Yeah.
The surface has been taken over by animals. Does that not constitute post-apocalyptic for you?
Yeah.
Depends.
Oh, exactly, right?
Yeah.
Because like for this girl, the
Yeah.
surface doesn't seem post-apocalyptic.
Exactly.
It looks fun and vibrant and colorful, and she
Yeah.
gets to meet new things. So post-apocalypse doesn't need to be Mad Max, lah.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah.
Depends on your perspective.
because
Yeah.
True.
I mean, like, it does deal with some very, very heavy subject matter.
Yeah.
Going anything from, a lesbian couple to teen love to like facing rejection and having parents or not having parents and the, nature versus nurture, and so many of these things are just crammed into like these 8 episodes.
Yeah.
Right? And all dealt with in very mature and concise ways that surprised me.
Kind of a weird millennial Aesop fables kind of thing vibe, right?
Yes,
that's
extremely.
nice.
Yeah, it really does have that feel to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aesop fables.
I'll catch it then.
It's a very short watch. I think it's only 8 to 10 episodes. I
Half an hour?
can't quite remember. Yeah, 20 minutes.
20
per
minutes
episode.
each.
Yeah,
It's
so
very, very quick.
It's between 3 to 5 hours of watch.
Sure.
It's
Okay.
very easy to watch. Next one I want to talk about is a movie that just came out this week. It's called Color Out of Space.
Oh yeah, how did this go?
It is based on a H.P. Lovecraft book called The Color Out of Space. It is this gorgeous and grotesque cosmic horror movie accentuated by yet another batshit gonzo Nicolas Cage performance. Truly, Nicolas Cage descending into madness gets me every time, and it's just the perfect match for H.P. Lovecraft, weirdly enough. I think the only reason nobody has ever adapted Lovecraft is because Nicolas Cage hasn't gotten on it yet.
Because Nicolas Cage hadn't descended into that level.
Yeah.
of madness.
Now he's in Relay.
He's
so
found his niche.
He's found his niche,
Huh.
And this whole movie is just so brain-meltingly weird and so visually beautiful, and I really liked it. Okay, so here's the premise. If you have not read the book,
Haven't.
a meteorite lands in the front yard of their remote farm. So Nicolas Cage plays a guy called Nathan Gardner. So this is the Gardner farm. Him and his family find themselves battling a strange color. It's an alien color from outer space, presented as trippy lights, and it infects their minds and bodies, and it transforms everything it touches into horrifying mutants. And it's like this trippy psychedelic nightmare driven by this thick mood of paranoia and vivid visual flourish. Think Mandy meets Annihilation.
Okay.
There's a combo of them, and just drenched in purple pink lights. And the body horror here is vomit inducing. Like, really, do not eat while you're watching this. It's just quite terrifying. And I don't get affected by body horror, but some of the stuff here is just really fucking gross. It's
I mean, we watched
super
that
gross.
Suspiria, right?
Suspiria, yeah.
Where they had really good body horror.
Yeah, but that's kind of art house body horror.
Art house body horror, lah.
This-
You're telling me this is like straight up.
Yeah. Because this is, yes, it has art house elements in terms of the lighting and design and stuff like that. But mostly the feel of it, down to the dialogue, the super cheesy dialogue and the body horror, it's all 80s
Like those
B movies
lah.
from the 80s that really wanted you to scream,
And it did, lah.
Yeah, exactly lah. So the B movie stuff works well because at first I thought it was just badly written. Like, the dialogue is weird, it's really awkward and clunky and kind of hilarious and cheesy at points. But then, like, after a while, it brought me back to the 80s movies that I've seen. So
And
I
then
think
it dawned on you, lah.
I think it was intentional that they wanted to make me feel like it was something that I was watching back in the 80s.
Okay.
And it made me... the barriers I built up as an adult are no longer there. Like, I'm a child watching a B movie.
Yeah,
It's
like
oh my
Tremors.
God, like, what the fuck is happening to them? That kind of thing. The sound design also really it's scored by Colin Stetson, who is an experimental saxophonist. He most recently did Hereditary. Really good stuff.
I love that he's an experimental saxophonist. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't play like regular jazz.
No.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And truly, you haven't lived until you hear Nicolas Cage do a Donald Trump impression while ranting about milking his alpacas.
So he has a rant.
What?
Because now Nicolas...
Several.
Oh, lovely.
So he recently bought some alpacas to milk for some reason.
Yeah,
It's never explained. This was before anything weird happens.
I mean, that's why you buy alpacas, to milk what?
So then someone asked him, like, why do you buy alpacas?
Totally normal.
Yeah. You're living in rural America. Why do you have alpacas to milk? And then, like, he just goes on this, like, epic rant, and he does this Donald Trump impression while ranting about alpacas and how important they are.
I really want to watch this.
This is like before anything weird.
So this was before the aliens came?
And can you imagine when the aliens infected his mind? How much, like, weirder it gets?
Like, they're like, okay, you know what? We'll stop. We'll just stop.
It's like when the aliens, like, infected him, right? Like, I couldn't tell the difference.
He's still the same Nick
It was
Cage.
just like, oh my god, It's just Nicolas Cage doing Nicolas Cage things.
Okay.
It's the perfect mix of art house and, like, midnight movie pop.
Okay.
It's a 7.5 out of 10.
Oh, that's beautiful. Do you prefer it to Mandy, or do you think
I
Mandy's
prefer
better?
Mandy.
You prefer Mandy?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. This doesn't have a chainsaw fight. Oh, and also I didn't like the ending.
Okay.
Yeah.
But still a 7.5.
But great journey lah.
Yeah,
towards the
okay,
end,
great.
Doctor Who is ending its 12th season this
With
week.
the new Doctor.
With the new Doctor. Chris Chinball actually took over the show from Stephen Moffat. We recently reviewed his Dracula. He spends most of Series 11 taking the classic British sci-fi show in a new direction. It's kind of led by this effortless charm of Jodie Whittaker. And as fun as those standalone episodes were, this season returns the show to
More traditional roots.
Yeah, like season 11 did a lot trying to distance itself from Doctor Who history.
Yeah.
You know, like we want to forge our own path and that sort of thing. And it rubbed a lot of fans the wrong way.
It did.
It did lah. I mean, they were good episodes. It's just like, you know, this doesn't feel like Doctor Who. Where's the Doctor Who stuff?
I mean, when you're a fan who has watched the show for 20 plus years, right?
And the show has been around for like 50 plus years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you expect certain things lah.
Yeah. So this one actually leans heavily into its 57-year history, and it has some deep cuts from everywhere, from the original stuff and all that.
Like Picard.
Picard's deep cuts are only for people
Who really like watched every single Star Trek.
Correct, yeah. But at the same time also, it still tries to create its own groundbreaking moments of canon.
Okay.
So I know a lot of fans have complained, but I feel that this one connects more to its history. And this season kind of fixes all that. It's still new, but it still references to old, you know.
This is the first season of Jodie Whittaker, right?
No, second.
Second already.
So the first season tried to forge its own path identity. So I feel like the first season, if they wanted to forge their own identity, that would be the time to do it. And then now you can connect back to previous canon.
Canon.
Yeah, because you know you want to establish the new Doctor first, right?
Correct.
Before you start tying in.
Just so that you can tell that this Doctor is different from the other Doctors.
And also the new crew, his
new
friends
crew,
and all that. This is actually a good Doctor Who season, a lot better than season 11, which had like 3 or 4 standout episodes, but overall was like a pretty meh. This one was a lot better.
Alright.
A lot better. Unfortunately, right, the saddest thing about Doctor Who right now is that Doctor Who has been for a long time not as good as Legends of Tomorrow, and it's the same show.
It's essentially the same show,
And the problem is that like Legends of Tomorrow is doing it so much better than this show, so it's hard not to compare them. It's the same recipe. So because Legends of Tomorrow is on air right now, it's a 7 out of 10.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
But that's still a decent rating.
Still a decent rating. Yeah.
It's a soft to high recommend.
Soft to high recommend.
Yeah.
It's a good show, it's just not Legends of Tomorrow.
Which is like an 8 to a 9.
Yeah. We'll be reviewing Legends of Tomorrow when
Next
season
month.
5 ends. Next month, I think.
Next month.
Next up, we'll be talking about a new show on HBO. It's created by Armando Iannucci.
What's it called?
It's called Avenue 5.
Wait, I watched this review.
Armando Iannucci is best known for writing comedies like Veep and movies like Death to Stalin, and it's this space tourism comedy set aboard an interplanetary cruise ship. When a system's malfunction sends the vessel far off course, it is estimated that it will take the ship 3 years to return to Earth.
Well, 3.5.
3.5 years to return to Earth.
That's an inside joke review.
So, a luxury vacation for about 5,000 guests on a cruise ship and crew, it begins to feel more like a prison sentence.
It does.
Hugh Laurie plays Ryan Clark, the smooth and dashing captain of Avenue 5, revered for his heroism, but is actually just a British actor pretending to be a captain with an American accent.
Yep. A very bad.
The autopilot the ship's on autopilot. The captain's just there to make people feel calm. The ship is owned by Herman Judd, played by Josh Gad, a spoiled, obviously stupid billionaire.
Deluded kind of person.
Who needs his handler Iris, played by Susie Nakamura, to save him and everyone around him from his terrible, terrible ideas. Over the course of the series, we meet other crew members like the nihilistic customer service rep Zach Woods.
Brilliant. Zach Woods, I love you.
Retired engineer Billy, as well as a handful of annoyingly demanding.
Billy's a retired astronaut.
Retired astronaut, I'm sorry. And a lot of like demanding privileged passengers.
Yeah, because they're either rich or they got in through rich relatives.
It's a recipe for comedy disaster, and it kind of is. Iannucci's strengths are all at play here, including a lot of zippy cross-chatter dialogue that we see a lot on Veep, some sarcasm and colourful language, and satirical situations. Probably the series' greatest strength, though, is its use of hard sci-fi concepts to create hilarious situations. I think the best example of this, and the thing that got me the most is when they were venting dead passengers out into space. And because the ship is so big, it has a gravitational pull. So the dead passengers are just orbiting its ship. And one of the best recurring gags is just the dead bodies of friends and family staring back at them
by the window.
out of every every episode. It's really funny. That part really got me.
Yeah, that got me too.
So I mean, what do you think about this show?
For first season, I find that this should. I mean, for the first few 6 episodes, I think now. 7. Yeah, still not done yet, right?
No,
Yeah.
3 more too.
So, I still feel it's trying to find its legs. Hugh Laurie is super charismatic. The guy can do it, lah. I mean, I believe in him as a leading man, lah.
Yep.
We've seen him in House, and how great, and I'm different, very, 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 very starkly different characters from his character in House. But I like that there are already this dynamic between passenger, crew, and within the passengers themselves, with their little politics already going on. Feels very Veep-like, or Death of Stalin-like, which I feel are 2 of his best work, Veep and
Death to Stalin.
Death to Stalin. Death to Stalin is a great comedy. If you haven't watched it, please watch it.
It's a movie, it's not a series.
Yeah, it's a movie.
Yeah. I mean, just informing all.
Yeah. Sorry, movie. Anyway, but then a lot of the a lot of the moments when you're supposed to go laughing, right? It kind of falls a bit flat. Some jokes don't land at all. I do like the stand-up comedian that they have though, who is this I think like a mid-level stand-up comedian lah. Not the arena selling kind of stand-up comedian, comedy club kind of stand-up comedian.
A cruise ship comedian.
A cruise ship comedian. That's even worse. But his non-hilarity is hilarious lah. Yeah. So that's great. And yeah, the hard sci-fi, the use of hard sci-fi to accentuate humor is spot on. But I have not resonated with the show that as much as I would like to lah. Just because of the strength of the actors involved in this show, like Zach Woods and Hugh Laurie and the Mr. Wallace from Dunder Mifflin.
yeah.
Right, all them.
So we've seen all of these guys in
the
comedies,
Office, Parks and Rec, and all that lah. And Silicon Valley.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And Josh Gad, something is off about Josh Gad's character, so I just don't. I mean, he's supposed to be super unlikable, and you get that lah. But there's no. It's still very early. It's only season 1, so there hasn't had that redemption arc thing that will most probably happen in the future lah. Yeah, but this show hasn't resonated with me as much as I would like it to lah. Yeah.
I also feel like the satirical barbs feel blunted because while they are sort of funny, they aren't incisive. I don't really know what he's trying to say. Is this about the tourism industry? Is it about the space industry?
Exactly.
Nothing quite makes sense with the jokes.
Is it about big corporations? Is it about...
I don't know. It's very muddled in its messaging, which Veep didn't have.
No.
The story is also, I think, kind of rather boring, filled with kind of broad caricatures that seemingly have little depth, as you're mentioning.
At the moment lah. Yeah.
That being said, I do realize that comedies often take time to reach their full potential, even from brilliant creators like Ian Nucci. I think Veep arguably didn't come into its own until the 2nd season.
Yeah.
If you think about The Office season 1,
Same thing.
Parks and Rec season 1,
Same thing,
they were terrible.
Exactly.
So the show is a struggle to get through right now. It's kind of struggling, but I'm gonna give it a shot. I have to say that I'm reviewing it today, this episode, because I stopped watching it.
Aww. No, I'll watch it for you.
But if the reviews get better in season 2, I'll come back to it lah.
Right now, I'm giving it like a 5 lah, a bare pass lah.
Yes, correct. Yeah. So until it gets better in future, I can't wholeheartedly recommend it. Yeah,
once
it's just kind of okay. So
correct,
it's a 5 out of 10 for me as well.
I feel that once it finds its space legs, then it will be better lah.
Correct.
I just wanted to say space legs.
Space legs. Next up, another HBO show. We've already talked about Stephen King's son, Joe Hill. Let's talk about Stephen King
himself.
The Outsider is a new mini-series based on one of his latest novels. Actually, his very latest novel called The Outsider. It is a thematically dark story set in a small Midwest town. Things kick off when local cop, played by Ben Mendelsohn, Ralph Anderson is his character, arrests a beloved teacher and a little league coach named Terry Maitland, played by Jason Bateman of Ozark, for the brutal killing of a young boy.
Okay.
There is overwhelming evidence that Terry did this, but equally overwhelming evidence that he couldn't possibly have done it. As the investigation unfolds and grows increasingly messy and violent, there are more child murders, more suicides and shootings, and increasing hints that there is something supernatural going on. something worse than men's inhumanity at work.
I
So
was wondering when the genre part was going to come in.
Stephen King.
Yeah, exactly.
So for those who've read the book,
have not.
which I have, you know that this is one of King's worst novels ever.
Okay, I was just going to ask.
It's pretty bad. Unfortunately for this show, right, it's worse than...
Wait, what?
It's overlong.
But it's Ben Melders.
It's overlong. It's convoluted. It's poorly paced and poorly shot. Like Bateman's other series, Ozark, right? It often conflates thematic darkness with literal darkness in this very dimly lit series. Sequences frequently play out in conditions close to pitch blackness, making many story beats difficult to follow because I just can't see what the fuck's going on. It is Ozark meets the Battle of Winterfell.
I'm just gonna say that.
There's an attempted jump scare in the barn, for instance, early on in the show.
But you couldn't see anything.
I couldn't see it. So,
You weren't scared?
so I was like, I could tell from the music that something just popped out, but
But
I
you
had
couldn't
no
see
idea. I didn't know what it was.
Is that bad?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's just one of the many moments where the non-existent visibility really affected my appreciation from the show. I'm all in for slow burns lah. So burning shows frequently like Better Call Saul are very good, but investment has to be earned with intrigue and character work, and The Outsider earns none of my time.
Because the beginning, when you said that, it's like this guy could have done it, but then he could have not done it or not.
Yeah,
That's a very interesting premise.
really. Of
Like-
the 700
I
shows that have
know,
done that.
but I'm just saying you can have done it well lah.
Yeah, you could have lah.
Yeah.
You could have lah. I mean, Better Call Saul is a lawyer show.
Yeah.
Like the 700 lawyer shows that came before. But,
Exactly.
It's
You
execution,
can have done it
right?
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So because a lot of the characters are intentionally ciphers.
Yeah.
And there are no details to them. Because you want to keep like the twists. Like I don't.
okay,
but
okay,
if I
okay,
don't know
okay.
them, why do I care
Exactly.
about them?
Okay.
And none of the details continue to mount, and the tension continues to mount, and it wants to be True Detective so bad. But even the True Detective's worst seasons are better than this. The story is fine. The acting is quite excellent actually, especially from recent Oscar nominee Cynthia Erivo. But with so little in the way of character or freshness or tone, it simply exhausts an interested viewer. I was intrigued after a while, but I gave up after episode 5.
Okay.
So this is a 3 out of 10 for me.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Alright. No recommend.
No recommend. Next up, I'll be talking about a 6-part Norwegian Netflix series set in the small town of Edda. And it's a unique combination of Norse mythology and teen drama. I'm talking about Ragnarok.
Alright.
This
So
is
the Norse gods are played by teenagers?
Ish. Think American Gods meets Riverdale, and
Oh, no.
you kind of get the gist of it.
I don't like it already.
I know.
When you said that line, I don't like it already.
But American Gods season 2.
Oh no, even worse.
Wow.
That's even worse.
The central crux is the town they live in is
Yeah.
experiencing warm winters and violent downpours, which are signs that another Ragnarok is forthcoming.
Oh no, the snake is coming.
And these kids, who are apparently reincarnated Norse gods, have to intervene. I'm not sure actually because I never finished it.
Motherfucker.
The premise is sort of intriguing. The execution is clumsy. We are saddled with boring love triangles and half-baked mysteries and the most cliche teen drama writing you can imagine. I give up after 3 episodes, so I'm not quite sure whether they are reincarnated Norse gods, but
Alright.
I think they are.
But the premise though, that sounds quite cool.
Yeah. But you should definitely give this a miss. It's a 2 out of 10.
Oh damn, son.
A couple of last ones before I actually my very last one, which is worse than The Outsider
Oh man, cannot be.
and worse than Ragnarok.
What is it?
It is a new movie called Fantasy Island. It is a Blumhouse's
So,
new reboot of Fantasy Island.
Okay.
It's based on the 1970s
Yes, correct.
series.
Yeah.
The story revolves around the enigmatic Mr. Roark, a man who makes the secret dreams of his lucky guests come true at a luxurious but remote tropical resort. But when the fantasies turn into nightmares, the guests have to solve the island's mystery in order to escape with their lives. Fantasy Island, right, is impressive in a sense that it might be the worst movie ever, like ever made.
No.
Or at the very least that I've ever seen.
But like we're talking about bad kind of worst, right?
Yeah.
We're not
the
talking about
worst,
like bad is good, right?
No, I'm talking about the worst movie ever.
Wow.
I've seen.
You've seen a lot of
I
movies
watched a
now.
lot of bad movies, but this movie actually left me in shock in a way that like I've never I've been through a war. Like I can't believe
That you
like,
just watched that.
something that could be this bad.
Huh.
Because I it's it's like one of those like drunks who hit rock bottom. and then they continue drinking, and then you don't realize there's another. It's like what BoJack says, like
there's another
there's a
bottom,
rockier bottom at the
Yeah.
bottom, lah. And this one, I feel like there is no way to go below this, lah. It is dumb in ways that range from inane to insulting. It's and the worst part of it, right? It's just stupid or the story doesn't make sense. It's just that it grows duller by the minute.
Ooh, that's bad.
It's just truly, truly awful. Fantasy Island is this C-grade horror story, right? The worst part of it all is that it's 2.5 hours.
No! That's the worst!
Avoid this at all costs.
You spent 2.5 hours.
I know, I walked out after like 2 hours 15 minutes, but I should.
And by this the last part already, lah.
Yeah.
You know, wow, 2.5 hours is mad.
Yeah, avoid this at all costs. A -10 out of 10.
I understand. Alright, we have found the bottom.
This on the reverse scale.
Yeah, you can't get worse than oh my. No, I kind of want to watch it just because.
That's true. Now that I've seen Fantasy Island, I think the two movies on our upcoming segment, Hardywood, it's a lot better. But okay lah, we'll leave Hardywood to the end lah.
Okay, if you want to.
It's not super important.
It's not that important.
Yeah. Let's talk about Ice's anime corner.
This is more important.
Returning to talk about the new season of anime. And what are the shows or returning or new or otherwise that Isa would recommend to us?
What's been happening in the anime world?
What's been happening in the anime world? I have to say, right, for technically this is still the winter season.
End of winter.
It's the end of winter season. For a winter season, we have quite a few like really good anime. I've got 8 new recommendations.
All right, let's go.
That I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to make them as quick as I can. So a lot of these,
no rush, brother. Take your time.
you can split this into 2 kind of like very distinct camps. We've got 4 really kind of dark and macabre ideas going on in some of the animes that I'm going to be recommending, and then we have something a bit more funny, a bit more lighthearted. I think will appeal to a different group of people.
All right, so 4 dark and 4 lighthearted.
Yes. So
Let's
I'm gonna talk
this.
about the first anime I'm gonna talk about, which is I think might be my favorite this season. It's called In/Spectre.
How do you spell that?
In?
I-N?
with a forward slash. Yeah.
Oh,
and
so it's not, the slash is not spelled.
No.
Okay. And what's
With how the naming of anime
and the spectre is as in ghost.
Ghost
Yes.
lah. Yeah,
Right?
got it.
So that's the English title of it. I can't remember what the Japanese name is.
It's okay.
But it is fascinating.
That's how they like to name enemies nowadays.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
All the titles in this my recommendations.
Got
a
punctuation marks.
Got a forward slash.
Yeah. The next one.
Weird exclamation mark.
Okay. Yeah, but just to get into that, so basically we follow this girl who only has one eye and one leg.
Oh,
Right,
no.
she walks around on a cane, and as the story kind of continues, you discover that when she was really, really young, she was propositioned by these spirits and the yokai, right, to basically become their queen of wisdom.
Oh,
Right,
okay.
so she becomes an intermediary between the spiritual world and the human world, right? And she's basically a fixer. She's a problem solver,
All right.
But in order to occupy that particular position, she needs to sacrifice one leg and one eye,
Oh, wow.
right? Because that brings her closer to divinity, so to say. Later on, she meets this boy, who for some reason has like some really mysterious powers going on, and they're not really sure what it is, but yokai basically are terrified of him, right? So the two make this unlikely pair that end up going around trying to help yokai to solve their problems and solve a particular mystery, and come against like more modern supernatural problems.
What is a modern supernatural problem?
Like, for example, how the internet and rumors on the internet might give
Oh,
birth
urban
to
legends
monsters of imagination.
Because it's belief, right?
Yeah, because it's belief, and like I think we're pretty familiar with those kind of like systems, right? So it's a
Mob Psycho did one, right?
yes,
An episode about that.
yeah, exactly. So it is very, very close to that. Very beautifully animated. The soundtrack is really, really good. It's got elements of horror and body horror here and there that I think are great. But it's just kind of interesting to see everything unfold. The storytelling is pretty inventive.
All right.
As to how everything is going. So that's Inspector, and it's the one that I'm enjoying the most right now. Now, onto my next recommendation, which also has punctuation. This time it's called ID: Invaded.
ID: Invaded.
Yes,
Okay,
so
cool.
more punctuation.
It invaded.
It invaded. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
ID or it? Very different.
no. It is both.
Oh, okay.
At the same time, which is-
double entendre.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So essentially, what it is that it's a it's a near future murder mystery.
Near future.
Near future murder mystery in which we basically have the police basically have the ability to go to a crime or murder specifically, right, and to accumulate these particles of killing intent, right, and using these particles of killing intent, you can actually form a it well for a person to dive into.
Okay.
So when the person when the person dives into this it well, they basically become the brilliant detective, right? Like a Sherlock type character, whereby it's divorced from their actual identity. They take on a entirely new character. So they are the brilliant detective, and they have to solve the mystery within the it well, while an entire team outside the it well watches him and supports him on the outside. So you've got this kind of weird like
Minority Report issue.
Yes, so you got Minority Report kind of going on here. You've got like this whole strange like Jungian, Freudian kind of like ideas floating around within this well of consciousness. The fascinating thing is that the only people that can dive into it wells are other serial killers.
So the guy that they asked to help is a serial killer lah.
He's a policeman that became a serial killer.
Oh no.
Yeah, so he, in order to avenge the death of his wife and daughter, and I mean all of this is in the kind of synopsis that they give you, he ends up killing the serial killer that took their lives.
Okay.
And then because of that, they start using the dive in. The thing is that he starts killing off the serial killers whose wells he dives into.
Okay.
Like forcing them to commit suicide using what he knows from their well.
Yeah.
And it gets far, far more complex than that.
Alright.
So extremely well written, some very interesting ideas, and the complications that the story as a whole and the kind of like plot twist that go along have been quite a ride, I have to say. Like it always keeps you guessing.
Okay.
Like you're never really sure what you're seeing or what you're doing. So ID Invaded also highly recommend for me.
Alright, next one.
Okay, next one I'm gonna talk about Pet. And Pet has a very similar okay, so Pet is basically about diving into people's subconscious via their dreams.
And that's
Right.
diving.
Is PET an acronym?
No, it's not.
PET.
It literally is Pet.
Like
if
a
you-
dog or cat.
Yeah, so I can't
Okay.
really explain why it's called Pet until you watch the thing, because it's kind of a bit of a
Spoiler.
spoiler.
Okay.
So the whole idea is that there are a group of literally there are a group of kids who are given the ability or the supernatural power in order to be able to access people's dreams, right? And via their dreams access their subconsciousness, right? And how they are employed as crushers, which means that what they do is that they destroy your peaks and then they permanently place you in your valleys, right? So everyone, again, a very Jungian idea of like peaks and valleys within your subconscious, but you keep your memories in those places. So just think of it as it's a series that is full of the kind of psychic battles that we had in Legion.
Okay.
Yeah, like it's full of that, right? So you have a lot of these very abstract landscapes and this whole idea of like the human consciousness being very vulnerable via our dreams for people to manipulate, right? The thing is that all these actors that have these abilities within this story have differing goals, right? Despite the fact that they're working for the same team. It's hard to kind of like give you any more than that, but the premise is fascinating and the animation is great.
Alright.
So essentially like you another invasion of like your subconscious, but just through a totally different method. So that's Pet. It gets pretty dark.
Alright.
Very,
Oh, wow.
very fast.
Okay.
So it's very, very good. We're going to talk a bit about Darwin's Game, which is an extremely popular manga that came about a couple of years ago. Basically a high school boy falls into a game. It's an app called Darwin's Game that he downloads on his phone because his friend sends him a link, and it's kind of like a dog-eat-dog world where people murder each other to gain points and fame and stay alive, right? It's enjoyable. The main character is a bit annoying at the beginning, as many.
It's anime lah, it's expected.
Yeah. It gets better as it goes along, but the mechanics of the game are fascinating, right? So like every time, they do take the time to kind of like try and figure out and break down the way things are worded and the different mechanics, and that appeals to me a great deal.
Okay.
All in all, this is a soft recommend. It's called Darwin's Game.
Darwin's Game. Okay.
Yeah, but it's extremely popular. Next up is called Doro Hedoro. And this is a remake actually of no, it's not a remake. It is an adaptation from an old 80s manga. And it is that was very popular in its time because it was extremely graphic and extremely absurd. And a lot of gore was involved in that. The anime is definitely not as gory, unfortunately, but it's still pretty interesting. The premise is that humans now live in this strange place called the Hole, right? It's kind of like a dimension that's kind of sealed off from what they understand to be the rest of the world, and within this hole, they coexist with other sort of like supernatural life forms. The problem is that the hole is a hunting ground for a group of people called sorcerers who are kind of gifted with the gift of magic, right? And part of the way that you ascend or you become more powerful as a sorcerer is that you have to hunt humans and practice your magic on them.
Oh wow!
Right. So we basically follow Kaiman, who is a lizard man hybrid, who has lost his memories, and the thing is that he wants to regain his former form as a complete human.
Okay.
So he's a lizard-headed man, which is a lot of this very popular right now: lizard-headed man, gun-headed man, chainsaw-headed man.
Yeah.
But
I think lizard men are pretty standard, right?
Yeah, they're pretty standard. So essentially, like, he has a huge vendetta. He wants a huge vendetta against the sorcerers, and he's trying to find out who made him the way he is and who he used to be before that. The only way to do that is to put the sorcerer's head in his mouth, his lizard mouth.
So not eat it, just put it in
his mouth, so that his human head that is within the lizard mouth can see who it is.
Oh.
And see if it's the right guy.
But why can't he use his lizard?
Yeah, so there are two different personalities. Like, so it's absurd.
Interesting.
Right? The kind of magic that people will is insane. Turning people into sludge. You've got like a sorcerer mafia that's going on, and like a dingy underground. It is insane. It is a weird mix of like violence and strange fantasy tropes that are twisted in a very kind of like absurd way. I think these are for fans who like that kind of strange thing with like Neo Tokyo, for example, or like Bloodline Battlefield. That's another one that's also like kind of in line where the supernatural kind of crosses over into our real world and just things get really, really weird. So that's Doro de Hero. Very enjoyable and very, very violent. So those four are basically the slightly more serious, more dark ones. We're going to go into something a bit more interesting. Next one I'm going to talk about is Drifting Dragons.
Okay.
Basically,
is it like Tokyo Drift but with dragons?
Oh, yes. I wish it was about that. So Drifting Dragons is basically about draking.
Then I'll be
drinking.
Draking, which is the occupation of hunting dragons.
Oh, okay.
And you hunt dragons in giant airships.
Makes sense.
Right.
Okay.
In this particular world, dragons exist as wildlife, and they're these huge creatures.
Like wheeling.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'll get onto that for a bit. The whole whaling kind of analogous disturbed me in the beginning.
Okay.
I have to say, because it really does feel like that. You have the harpooning, you have harvesting oil from the dragons and things like that. You follow this ragtag crew who have kind of been doing it for a while, and they're not really the best at what they do, and you kind of see the camaraderie there. And largely the story is told through the eyes of a novice girl who joins the draking crew, and the kind of hero character is a draker who is kind of like a savant. He can smell dragons in the air, and his goal is to kind of like eat meat from every dragon that's possible.
Species lah.
Yeah, every species that's possible. Yeah. So it's this kind of weird mix between like an explorer / sailor vibe that's going on, but at the same time there's a lot of like gourmet shots of like dragon cuisine, which I find fascinating. And they kind of like delve into that. The world building is great. The animation is really, really good, but it's one of those like cell shading type things that Netflix is super fond of right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if it gets on Netflix really soon. I had mixed feelings about the whole whaling thing, but I do think that as the story progresses, in a kind of like slice of life way, the individual characters have to grapple with that as well, right?
Okay.
Like, why are we hunting these magnificent, beautiful creatures? The show does offer some justification because when dragons do go rampant, they do destroy like entire cities and things like that, which whales don't. You know, but at the same time, like, it
Also
was
a very
hard.
Japanese problem.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So I did have some conflict as the story kind of went along. I do feel they addressed it on personal levels within the characters, but I'm not sure if that was enough. But overall, a very enjoyable anime just for the fantasticalness of what they're presenting to us.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's Drifting Dragons. Okay. So now we go on to the truly funny stuff, and I've got two.
Okay.
Right. First and foremost, I'm going to talk about, and this is the full title, I Hate Being in Pain.
Okay.
So I think I'll make a full defense build.
That makes sense.
So it's one of those VR
a gaming
MMO.
one.
Yeah,
Makes
it's
sense,
a gaming one.
makes sense,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's one of those VR MMO animes that are really, really popular right now. And I think like this one will appeal to a lot of people because it's just straight up silly and just makes fun of a lot of like the tropes that
tropes,
we've come to know and love, right? Essentially, we follow Maple, who is a complete and utter noob, trying her first VR MMO for the first time, and because of her ignorance or naivety, whichever way you want to see it, she ends up min-maxing her build to the point where she becomes impossible to defeat. Based upon the fact that she doesn't like feeling pain, because in this virtual world you can feel pain. So she basically puts all of her stats in defense and nothing else.
She's a tank lah.
Yeah. And through some misadventures and adventures that she goes through, it synergizes and min-maxes, so basically like she becomes as powerful of a character as exists in the game.
Wow.
And then it's all about her misadventures through the game as she learns to love
MMOs?
gaming and
Yeah.
MMO and makes friends along the way in a sort of very absurd slapstick kind of
Better than season 1 of Sword Art Online?
different. So different.
Oh, okay.
So different. This has nothing of the seriousness or the thematic heaviness of Sword Art Online. It's completely comedy, and
Alright,
it is
brilliant.
so fun
Thank
to
God.
watch.
Okay.
Right? Okay, and the last one I'm going to talk about today is also a very long title, and it's called Science Fell in Love, So I Tried to Prove It. And it's basically a slice of life thing where this group of university researchers, right, they're all scientists. Two of them suspect that they are in love, but because they don't have the social aptitude to deal with those things, they try to scientifically quantify the fact
Through
that
experiments and shit.
yeah, and it's hilariously funny.
Alright.
It is so funny just seeing them go about it. I have to say that for a comedy anime, their scientific process is quite rigorous, and I do enjoy the fact that it's quite rigorous because it sets up for more comedic moments as well.
Okay.
It's another soft recommend for me because I really enjoy it.
Nice.
Nice.
So, that pretty much wraps up what I have. We are midway through the season, so we'll probably be doing another anime corner in about 2 months' time
Yes.
when the new season comes about. But yeah, within a week or two, things will start wrapping up, and you can start binging all these 8 titles as and when you want.
Awesome. And for the on-screen stuff, Hardy's going to wrap us up with our new segment, Hardywood. Where we talk about big budget blockbusters that maybe are not so artful or popular. But
very popular, just not artful.
But they exist.
They do. And they're genre adjacent. Or genre itself. Sonic
No,
is
they're
genre.
super genre. Both of them are.
Both of them super genre actually.
Yeah.
Adjacent.
Hobbs and Shaw was genre adjacent.
No, I had Super Soldiers lah. If
Oh, okay.
Captain America Winter Soldier, we would review.
But that's a comic book movie, different.
True. But still, Super Soldiers.
Thanks. See, I didn't have to justify it.
So, first, let's kick it off with Kristen Stewart's new movie called Underwater, which is basically Alien Underwater.
Alien Underwater.
Yeah, so what do you think about it?
That sucks.
Okay.
That's easy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I like to watch movies because certain actresses or actors are inside. So when I saw it's a Kristen Stewart vehicle, I was like, okay, I will watch it.
Yeah, do you watch Charlie's Angels, by the way?
I did. It
Actually,
wasn't
I actually kind of liked it.
it wasn't as
Now having seen
bad.
this lah, yeah.
It wasn't as bad as this lah. Yeah. So Underwater though, it has some beautiful visuals, I have to say. Really good work on the VFX in terms of like water pressure, water damage, water going into places that you don't want water to go into. You know, a lot of nice touches on like hard sci-fi stuff, not hard sci-fi, rather just science lah. You know, in terms of water pressure lah, how your suits, you know, but things that we have seen like in a movie like Abyss. You know, so you had like it felt like a very big budget, but it was just lacking a lot of the spirit and soul that you loved from Abyss or from Aliens, you know, that kind of thing. There's something missing here. The characters were very tropey, super tropey, and so underdeveloped, if that's the word.
Yep.
Yeah. There was no saving grace for me in this movie because it was so boring by the end of it. Everything was so predictable and so, yep, that's going to happen. Yep, the monsters are going to wake up. Yep, there's a bigger monster. You know, like every single part of the movie, I could tell what was just going to happen immediately after that.
Yep.
Sometimes that works, you know, because you're staying true to a certain formula and it works. But this movie just felt very bland, very like mush. You know, there was nothing really sustaining me throughout this movie. But by the end, I was just exhausted. I just want to go home, and not in a good way. I like when I'm exhausted after a movie, but because I'm holding my breath, or, you know, I'm like, you know, cheering it on and all that. I just wanted Kristen Stewart to hurry up and end it already lah. Yeah. So this movie for me was not as I was impressed maybe by some of the visuals and all. I was not impressed by the monster design. It was very generic, I would say. It was a monster with big teeth and long hands, long arms. There was nothing cool about it. And I feel if you want to do a movie like this, your monster design has to be on point. I mean, look at Del Toro and all his crazy, innovative monsters, you know.
Guillermo, not Benicio.
Sorry. Yeah, you all knew that, huh?
Well,
I mean, Benicio del Toro, his
He
body,
can play
his
a
body
monster.
is a character design in
Yeah.
itself.
Exactly. Yeah, he's a cool monster too,
Yeah.
but in a good way. Yeah. So this movie didn't have any redeeming qualities that yeah. So I'll give it a 1 out of 10 lah.
Okay.
Don't even watch lah. It's good lah. It's not good for you. Yeah. Just don't watch.
Agree. I mean, for a deep sea creature feature, I guess it's pretty shallow.
Whoa!
1 out of 10 for
That was
me.
good.
Next up, we'll talk about Sonic the Hedgehog. But before we talk about Sonic the Hedgehog, could you explain a little bit about
The controversy. Okay,
Yeah.
so a long time ago in 2019,
I know,
a
feels like
trailer,
forever,
a trailer was released
Yeah.
on Sonic the Hedgehog, and there was this huge, massive backlash just because of the character design of Sonic. It was very weird looking. It just was in this weird. It was just ugly lah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It was so ugly. And the backlash was insane
There were
because
petitions.
Yeah.
Petitions.
many petitions.
And the film was
just-
pushed back 6 months so
Yeah.
they could redesign Sonic's look. To
The
please
studio freaking caved
Yeah.
and redid it,
Yeah.
which is rare.
Yep.
So okay, and then the new trailer comes out with the new character design. So first of all, can we just give a round of applause to this fucking VFX guys? Because they couldn't just replace the asset. They had to redo the entire thing. And so that extension of 6 months, you know, yeah, I mean, no one was bothered by the extension lah, because it wasn't like a Sonic was such a movie that you're looking forward to it, you know, it's not Avengers Endgame, you know.
Yeah.
So when the new trailer came out, there was a lot more positive reviews, definitely, because the character design came on to the traditional game itself, you know, with some added definition, you know, like his what do you call those things? Pricks, his hair, you know. So finally, when I watched this movie, I came into this movie not expecting much. Really, honestly, I just didn't give a shit lah. Like Sonic lah, whatever. I played Sonic when I was young, but it wasn't a very important character. Video game character for me. You know, it was on the Sega Genesis. I played through it maybe 3 to 4 times, you know. And for a moment, yeah, I have that nostalgia of Sonic to an extent. However, I was pleasantly surprised when I came out of the movie that I had a lot of fun with this movie. Okay, it has a very first of all, it's a generic as fuck plot. Okay.
I mean, it's a Sonic movie.
Yeah. So I'm not expecting it to be, you know, an Oscar-worthy script lah. You know,
love to see an Oscar-worthy song.
that one they cannot. That one might go like Logan. You know. Yeah, but okay. Impressed with the character design. I like the back and forth between James Marsden and Sonic himself. The voice acting for Sonic is by one of my favorite guys, John Paul, the guy from The Office. I know the Parks and Rec. Tony Haverford's friend.
Oh right, yeah.
What's his name? Shit. John Ralphio.
John
Ralphio. Yeah, John Ralphio. I can't remember the actor's name.
You got that right.
That guy. Yeah. Not bad.
Yeah.
That's a good John Ralphio. Yeah. So anyway, I loved it. I loved Jim Carrey's over the top performance of Dr. Robotnik.
Back to his 90s form, huh?
Yeah. And it was it was the perfect character for Jim Carrey to do this kind of crazy lah. You know, where he's a bit eccentric as fuck, and you know, with really exaggerated movements and all that, which is like Jim Carrey's thing. I mean, in the 90s, because he went through the whole, like Spotless Mind and Number 42 and all that stuff lah. Yeah. So anyway, by the end of it, I was like, yeah, okay. I was decently surprised. You know, I was 42. I can't remember. Is it 42? 23. Oh, 42 is the number of the equation of life, right? Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So yeah. Overall, James Marsden, Jim Carrey, and John Ralphio. Sorry, I cannot remember the actor's name. I felt it all worked. It worked to an extent. I had a lot of fun. There was. I didn't need to think so hard about the plot, about the rings. You know, the rings take you here, take you there. Or the rings are teleporters. They're not just for you to collect points. Yeah. So interesting innovation there lah. You know, making the rings into this teleporting portals lah. Yeah. Sorry, not teleporting portals, just portals.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Yeah. Overall, fun. I had a lot of fun. I will give it a 6 out of 10.
So it's an okay movie lah.
It's okay. I had a lot of fun, but it's very tropey. It was very it is to me it is a successful video game movie when you compare it to all the other video game movies out there,
like Assassin's Creed or
exactly.
Doom or Warcraft.
Warcraft. Continue on.
Tomb Raiders.
Mortal Kombat.
Mario
Mortal Kombat 1 is a different league. It's so bad it's good.
Mario Brothers.
Now that is the one, because those are Sonic and Mario are kind of the rivals.
Yeah.
So wait, leaks better than whatever Dennis Hopper was on during that period of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Way better. Yeah. So this movie 6 out of 10. It is the second best video game movie after Detective Pikachu.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I think my only comment is that have you seen a movie called Hop?
No.
It's about a rabbit. Okay, so if you've seen a movie called Hop, it's this is Sonic. I'm showing them a picture. You can see
a picture of Sonic and James Marsden.
James Marsden, yeah. I'm gonna show you a picture of Hop.
Okay,
it's
cool.
the same movie lah.
All right.
Yeah. So I just like Hop a lot better than Sonic.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't watch Hop, so I didn't know lah.
It's the same movie. That's my only comment.
Okay.
Yeah. Before we wrap it up, I'm gonna do a quick book recommendation, and then we'll wrap it up.
I love the title of this book, by the way.
Yeah, it's called How to Invent Everything: A Survival Guide for the Stranded Time Traveler. It's written by the writer of The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, Ryan North. It isn't a story. There isn't a story here.
Okay.
It is a manual for time travelers stuck in any time period.
So it's like the zombie survival guide now.
Correct, yeah. With this book as your guide, you'll survive and thrive in any period in Earth's history. Ryan North shows you how to invent all the modern conveniences we take for granted. From first principles, the illustrated manual contains all the science, engineering, art, philosophy, facts, and figures required for even the most clueless time traveler to build a civilization from the ground up.
This has always been my thing. I always figured if I go back in time, right, I'm not going to survive just because I don't know how to do a lot of things.
So this manual is for you.
Yeah.
It is very funny and very irreverent, but it also is very deeply researched and purposefully technical. It's so technical that it's funny.
What are some of the inventions?
All the things that you know lah.
Yeah.
Everything like wheels,
electricity,
things like that lah. It's filled with
and how it works.
Correct. It's filled with flowcharts and graphs and assembly instructions and just super technical instructions for more complicated devices that are true, that he basically just copy and pasted from encyclopedias, but it's just funny lah.
Yeah, because the time period itself,
The premise is dry, it's super dry. But that is kind of the comedy because he's writing an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
However, he's kind of witty and smart enough to make essentially any topic entertaining. The manual isn't just informative though; it also provides perspective, and its far-reaching scope reminds us that humanity is capable of making significant real progress, albeit slowly, because it makes you realize how amazing all these things are.
Yeah.
And North's vision of history is one of human ingenuity, I think. That's kind of the point he's trying to drive home here. It's a hard sci-fi guidebook played for laughs, but it also serves to remind us that we as a people
have come quite far.
We can be better even still,
Yeah.
Progress can be made. 7.5. It's
Oh,
really
nice.
funny.
I want to read this now.
So it's like a Dr. Stone manual.
Ish, yeah.
Ish,
But it doesn't have a narrative.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's more like the Zombie Survivals guide.
Yeah,
You're right.
it's a guide lah.
Yeah, which was the prequel to World War Z, right?
Yeah.
Or sequel to World War Z. It's set in the world of World War Z.
No,
Yeah.
World War Z is a diary.
Right, yeah. But the
survival guide is just a survival guide.
I
Like
know,
that.
But it came before.
Before.
Right?
Yeah, before World War Z.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
And to wrap it up, the final show we'll be saying goodbye to is Arrow. Now that Arrow has ended after...
We're talking about his legacy lah.
Yeah, it's ended after its 8th season. I thought we could take some time to eulogize the series as a whole. We all may have given up on the show at various points.
Yeah.
With the exception of the annual crossovers, which we all still watch. There's no denying that when the show was at its best, it gave us some of the best superhero television ever made. It was an imperfect show with a massive legacy. When Arrow first aired in the fall of 2012,
Oh man, those were the days.
there were few who predicted that it would survive one season,
Nope.
and even fewer who expected it to spawn a spin-off called The Flash.
Yeah.
Now, nearly 8 years later, Arrow has redefined the superhero series and become the cornerstone for the largest single shared reality in all of television or film. Because the Arrowverse, especially with Crisis on Infinite Earths, has tied together every Arrowverse show with every television and cinematic universe ever based on a DC Comics character. And it's pretty wild that there's street level Daredevil, proto Daredevil show. What Netflix tried to do with Daredevil, like Green Arrow did way before in season
Way
1.
before, 2012, man.
Yeah, and
It was the OG.
OG, yeah. And some of the violent shit that Green Arrow did, right, with on a CW rating,
Yep.
right? It's implied violence, but
It is.
It's there,
Yeah.
Like
It's a fucking arrow sticking through your shoulder. It's gonna hurt, motherfucker.
in season 4, he skinned a person alive, in Russia.
Oh fuck, he did that. Yeah. I
So
totally forgot.
this Daredevil has that reputation as the gritty show. But
Yeah.
come on, Arrow fucking killed people for 2 seasons.
Yeah. Way before
With
you
no
were born.
regrets.
Yeah.
No regrets.
He didn't
just
have-
murdered
yeah.
motherfuckers.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
obviously that was I couldn't a formula that couldn't continue lah.
Correct, yeah.
And the show I think the show constantly evolved itself throughout the 8 seasons lah.
Yeah.
For better or worse.
I watched the finale out of context. I didn't watch the last few seasons, but it was very nice because he brought in everyone from all the various Arrowverse shows for his funeral, and it offered
Oh yeah,
up-
spoiler, he fucking dies.
yeah. Of course, we said this.
We
in
did it in
Crisis.
the Crisis episode.
And the series finale offered us branches into its legacy because it has a proposed spin-off, Green Arrow and the Canaries, featuring Black Canary, White Canary, his daughter, the new Green Arrow, etc. As well as John Diggle finding a Green Lantern ring. So I'm assuming that will be it.
John Diggle is gonna be Green Lantern.
We've always thought that
Yeah,
John
yeah.
was going to be the Green Lantern, so they kind of
That is just solely from the TV series because Diggle is a TV series character.
yes,
Right?
Yeah. So he is probably going to be the new Green Lantern. If
Why not?
I wouldn't be surprised if 5 years from now there are 14 new spin-offs of Arrow because the Arrowverse is just this unstoppable monster.
Yeah.
This is huge.
At this point in time.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think is Arrow's significant contribution to the superhero landscape?
Look at it this way: DCEU was struggling during the period of Arrow.
Oh, yeah. The CWverse is kicking its ass, man.
Yeah.
The CW was
Yeah.
giving us the Arrowverse was giving us what we couldn't get from the DCEU movies.
It didn't do them well, but at least it gave us
Something.
something,
Yeah. Something more than whatever the fuck Aquaman was doing on top of Batman's car.
Yeah. They had like fucking like $2 billion to do that, and then we had like, we have $5, let's do Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah, Crisis, which is one of those comic events which just blew your mind back in the day.
With a budget that couldn't even do one single scene in BVS or something.
Right?
Yeah.
And they did, and I mean, that is the larger legacy, where you had your crossovers and all that. But to have those crossovers means you have to have the spin offs.
Yeah.
And the first spin off, The Flash, was one of the best things that happened to the Arrowverse.
For
For a while, right?
For a while, yeah. Then, Legends came. And when Legends came, it rode off the backs of Arrow and The Flash. But mostly Arrow, because a lot of the characters came from Arrow.
Actually, half of them were from Flash.
Flash,
also,
yeah. Captain Cole is from Flash.
Yeah. Firestorm
was from Flash.
Yeah, Heatwave.
Yeah. But Canary is from Arrow.
Correct, yeah. Atom was from Arrow.
Atom was from Arrow also, yeah. So that kind of thing, without Arrow, you wouldn't have The Flash. Without The Flash, you wouldn't have Legends. And without all those three, you wouldn't have all these fucking crossovers.
Yeah, you wouldn't have Supergirl.
We wouldn't have Flashpoint. We wouldn't have Crisis on
Infinite Earths, Crisis on Earth
Earth
X, Elseworlds, Invasion.
Elseworlds.
Yeah.
So many to name. It became a trope.
Yeah.
They became a trope. Yeah, and and it was so, the legacy was so great that even DCEU, had to succumb and join the Arrowverse.
More like they were trying to struggle.
No,
and
they
be
were,
like,
can
we get a bit of your a bit of your rub, Like,
yeah, exactly. That's why they had to succumb and come to the Arrowverse.
I know. Previously, everyone was like, when is Grant Gustin gonna cameo or what? It's like, motherfucker, you
No,
come to
he
us.
comes to us. Yeah,
Grant Gustin is
he hasn't earned his Flash status.
Flash on TV is so much bigger, so much bigger than Flash on Ezra Miller was.
We love Ezra.
Fine, he's a good Flash.
He's a good Flash.
Whatever lah.
Yeah.
But he's no Grant Gustin.
He doesn't have his own solo movie yet.
Yeah.
The Flash has 1,000 seasons now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it as much as critically it's not your BoJack Horseman or The Good Place, right?
For a while it was.
For 3 seasons.
For a while it was really well received.
After there was 3 solid seasons.
4.
Yeah.
And the first 2 seasons of Flash, were very
On
well
point.
received. Yeah. So at certain points it was a critically acclaimed show.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And it fell off lah.
It fell off. But it's okay, it doesn't mean that we hate it or anything like that. In fact, we celebrate it for what it's done to the superhero TV show landscape. Yeah, I felt that it raised the game for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. also. It raised the game for the Netflix people also.
Yeah.
And where are those shows now? I mean, okay lah, Agents is...
It's half a season, one season
One
left.
season left.
Yeah lah.
All the Netflix shows are dead just because,
Yeah.
Disney Plus came about.
Yeah, Feige snapped.
The Feige snap.
And they disappeared.
But yes, so with a heavy heart, I have to say that I'm gonna miss Arrow, even though I haven't been watching for 2 years.
Its legacy will continue for 20 more.
But it was always there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was always there's Arrow on now. Not that I watch Arrow, but yeah. It was always there, now it's no longer there.
Yeah, what about you guys?
I don't think watching the pilot episode of Arrow, I at any point in time did I ever think it would be this big.
Yeah.
At all. For it to become the mother of monsters that it has become, it is really, really quite fascinating.
Yeah.
I didn't think much of the first couple of episodes that I was watching. I didn't think anything was spawned out of that. I didn't think it was that great. The first season wasn't great.
He had the Batman voice.
The Batman voice, the growling thing. Yeah.
And then his pull-ups. That was the famous scene.
Salmonella.
But I mean, all those things, I can't complain because so many great things have come out from that. And I think, it's a bit sad to see it go, but it has served its purpose.
Definitely. Yeah.
I'm thankful for that. I mean, Legends to this day to me is still one of the best things that have come out of the Arrowverse, without Arrow it wouldn't be possible. Yeah, it wouldn't be possible.
I mean, the show started out as this guy for bow and arrow shooting at corrupt politicians.
Yep.
And then
with a list.
With a list, yeah. And then 8 years later, Crisis on Infinite Earths happened. From that, it's a bit mind-boggling that it kind of. It's quite crazy It's quite crazy that it went from there to there
And he became the savior of the universe.
Every universe.
Every universe. I mean,
oh my god, it's insane.
And to do that without the big three.
Yeah.
Without all the major characters.
What is that?
Superman was there lah.
Yeah, Superman was there.
Batwoman was there lah.
CW has their own trinity. Like their trinity is Flash, Arrow, and Supergirl. Yeah, that's their trinity.
When Supergirl came out and it was a different network.
And it was a different network, but still they made it work. I love it.
But CBS owns CW.
Yeah, CW.
It's fine.
It's the same network but different channels.
Correct. Yeah. And now even Black Lightning has like joined them. He's part of the Justice League now. On Earth Prime,
which is good lah.
Yeah,
because that show is also struggling.
That's true lah. That's true. Yeah. And they needed the token black guy.
I'm sorry, but yes, you do. I mean, Diggle is good and all, but
Diggle's not
Black Lightning.
Yeah.
Black Lightning showed up for one scene, right? And then he fired up the cosmic treadmill with his electric power. Basically, Flash was like, I need a charger. And then Black Lightning showed up. It's like, let me charge this for you.
I have a charger.
And then they were like,
I'm at 1%.
And they were like, you want to join us on our Justice League? Okay, I guess I can be your charger. Hopefully he gets to do more like in future crossovers because I understand that Crisis was way too packed for Black Lightning to ever even fucking like Flash and Supergirl didn't have like a major impact, so what you gonna do. Next month though we'll be having a lot of stuff. What will we be talking about? Okay, Altered Carbon is coming back.
It's not out yet?
It's out tomorrow. So it will be out before you hear this episode, but due to recording schedules, we won't have time to review it just yet.
Yes.
But Altered Carbon also has an anime series coming out in the same month.
Yes.
So you both can cover that because I'm out of Altered Carbon already.
No, dude, this season is good.
Sure.
That's all what the reviews are saying.
Well, we'll see. It's what's his face, right?
Falcon.
He's Captain America now, goddammit.
Sorry, my Captain America.
Falcon.
He's my Captain America. Remember the whole controversy of Falcon becoming Captain America?
He can't be, he's black.
And then he's like, he's not my Captain America. And Marvel kind of like doubled down on it.
They did.
Two Captain Americas.
The other Captain America was a Russian agent for 30 years.
Yeah, guys.
That was the other option. How do you trust him? Like one day somebody could just be like code word.
But it's all retcon, right?
Yeah,
it's all been retcon.
Yeah. A Quiet Place Part 2 also comes out.
Yes.
Mulan comes out.
Yes. Interesting. From the trailers we've seen of Mulan, it's quite interesting. It's definitely way not going to be like what
no. Of course
the
not.
movie
We've established that.
It's more of a historical battle. There are witches.
Fantasy
there are witches and stuff lah, but
like transformations and shit.
It's more.
But it's more Chinese movie tropes rather than
correct.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, Chinese movie, battlefield,
wuxia. What is it called?
Wuxia.
Yeah. There you go.
That kind of stuff. Castlevania is also coming back.
Yes.
Which we'll all watch. I will leave Altered Carbon to them lah. But I will if they give it a really great review, then I will jump back in later on lah. The Invisible Man.
Yes, I want to watch that so bad.
I've seen it.
Is it good?
It's the best horror movie of the last 20 years.
Alright, come watch it.
Wow. Pure horror movie. I do have to say, because a lot of the great horror that we've been covering have been art house stuff.
Like,
this is like not really horror.
Yeah.
But this one is just like pure, straight up, fucking good horror lah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, I can't really watch it.
With also all the themes of like abuse and toxicity.
Which is the Invisible Man.
Correct lah.
Updated lah.
yes, definitely. And for quick hits, I'm going to be talking about the new Pixar movie Onward.
I'm watching that also though.
Okay, so you can.
Are you watching that? Onward?
Yeah,
that's a good one.
It looks good.
I'll be watching Gretel and Hansel. I'll be watching this thing on Amazon called The Vast of Night. There is I Am Not Okay on Netflix, which is based on teens with superpowers lah.
The usuals.
The end of the fucking world. The writer made another book called I Am Not Okay. I'm not okay with this, so it's about that. It's made by the producers of Stranger Things. It stars two of the leads from It. And it's produced and written by the End of the Fucking World guy. So it sounds like it's gonna be another Lock and Key in the sense of like it's a karaoke version
without
of
the
many other things.
Development hell lah.
Yes, without development hell. But I will see. Maybe it plays out well. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll see.
What else?
Kingdom season 2. I'll be watching.
I'll be watching it too.
Amazing Stories will be. It's a new anthology by Steven Spielberg. I almost said Soderbergh. Steven Spielberg. Yeah, it's a reboot of a 60s TV show that was an anthology sci-fi show.
Okay.
But not in a sense that like it's Twilight Zone or anything. It's more about adventure.
Alright, I like that.
Yeah. And I will be talking about Guns Akimbo also, which is about
I want to watch that. It's so funny.
a guy with guns for hands.
He got guns nailed to his hands.
Yep. And also a weird show called Be Foreigners, which I'm watching. It's not very good, but it's weird lah. It's about
it's a series lah.
Yes, okay. It's about time traveling Vikings who have been mysteriously transported from Viking era to modern times, and they have to integrate into society.
I want to watch this.
And one of the Vikings becomes a cop, so it's a cop procedural. Because of course, right? It's
Wait,
a cop
what's it
procedural.
called again?
Be foreigners. So they're foreigners from before. So you get
Be
it.
foreigners. Oh my god, it's clever.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you like it so far?
No, but it's so weird. I mean,
No, but it's so weird that I like it.
I can't genuinely say I like it, but I watch every week because I'm like, what the fuck is this? It's like I watched the last episode yesterday before I watched episode 2 of Better Call Saul, and I watched it before Better Call Saul because I'm like, I would just want to see what happens next. You know?
Alright.
What new Viking team murder would they explore? Okay, so there's a serial killer, and he's targeting time displaced persons.
Oh, okay.
Because he doesn't want those illegal immigrants here. It's
no.
yeah.
Right.
So they're being targeted by this serial killer who is
okay.
like xenophobic against time displaced people.
Yeah.
But there are also other people. There's some Victorian people who've been time displaced, and there are people from other eras lah. But we follow the Vikings because the cop is a Viking.
Alright.
Yeah.
Oh, then you reviewed it already. You're good.
Oh yeah, sure.
Is it a recommend?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I have to wait. I have to wait.
Take
Stay
another
tuned for the
month.
recommend.
Take another month to think about it.
Stay tuned for the rating.
Then we'll rate it.
I've never
again.
been more confused about how to rate a show.
No wonder you need one more month to think.
I know. I just really need to mull on this. Is this worth it? I don't know.
Okay, I'll watch it also.
Anyways, this has been Hidzir.
I'm Hardy.
I'm Isa.
Take it sleazy.
Bye bye.